Good evening. My name is Catherine All, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Kitsap, I want to welcome you all to the 23rd Legislative District Representative Position 1 Virtual Forum. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that doesn't support or oppose political parties or candidates. After careful study and consensus by our members, the League does take a position on issues, and we take action on those positions at the local, state, and national level. We would like to acknowledge that our homes and gathering places in the 23rd Legislative District are within the ancestral territories of the Suquamish and S'Klallam peoples, and those two tribes are an important part of the district. Here are the rules for tonight's forum. Each candidate will have a minute and a half for an opening statement. Then we will have questions. And candidates will have 1 minute each to answer questions submitted by the public. Following that, candidates will have 1.5 minutes for a closing statement. Okay. Each one of you deserves our thanks for stepping up and running for office. Please be respectful of each other. You each deserve that. The candidates will give their opening statements in the order they will be on the ballot. So, Tiffany, you get to go first.
Great, thank you. I'll just go ahead and start then. My name is Tiffany Attrell, and I am running for the 23rd District Legislative Office. My family and I moved to Kitsap in 2009 from Seattle. We were looking for a safer community and good schools for my 2 children. My lived experience that I bring is one of having worked for a for-profit company, nonprofit community organizations, and worked in healthcare. I've been a stay-at-home mom and a small business owner. And I've also worked in both city and county government. I come from a social work background and have years of experience working in public service. My true passion is the work that I did as a crime victim advocate, serving crime survivors and their families as they navigated through the complexities of the criminal justice system. I felt it was an honor and a privilege to work alongside victims' families. And I worked with every type of person against person violent crime, survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, robbery, assault, kidnapping, vehicular homicide, and surviving family members of murder victims. My priorities include enhancing community safety by supporting law enforcement and holding offenders accountable, supporting public education, and working on efforts to strengthen mental health and addiction. I also believe in affordable housing and fixing our ferries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next person on the ballot would be Kurt Robertson. And he had indicated that he would be at this forum, but he may be having technical problems or something, but he has not joined us yet. So we're going to go ahead, and if he joins us later, he will participate in the rest of the forum. So, Tara Simmons, it's your turn for your opening statement.
Thank you so much, Catherine, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I am State Representative Tara Simmons. I've been serving our district for 2 terms now, 4 sessions. Many of you know that I grew up here. I graduated from Central Kitsap High School, and I've raised my 2 boys here. I have 2 sons. One is a new Marine and a new father. So I'm also a new grandmother, which I'm very happy about. And I'm also a former registered nurse, a social justice lawyer, and a nonprofit director and a national advocate for criminal justice reform. Having been a survivor survivor of multiple forms of violence and being also incarcerated, I know that people inside of our prisons and jails oftentimes are survivors of violent crime. And my priorities have rested on bringing restoration and helping people with the root cause of crime. In addition, I've been a champion on affordable health care. I'm very proud of my charity care bill that I got through with Bob Ferguson that expanded free health care for people under 400% of the federal poverty level to 2.5 million new people. Also, I'm very proud about my voting rights work and making sure that all people have a voice in our democracy. And I'm also really proud of the investments that I've been able to make all across the county, from Kitsap Mental Health Services to Eglon to the Bainbridge Island Japanese Memorial. Sorry, okay, I'm out of time.
Okay. And Tiffany, you get to go first again on the first question. What are your funding priorities for the upcoming session? And would you consider cutting some of the corporate tax breaks?
Good question. Thank you. So I'll just share a little bit about when I decided to run. And I'm fairly new at this, and I'm learning a lot as I go. It wasn't, I decided to run, I think it was February, March of just this year. And so I have a great deal to learn and have conversations with folks about all sorts of issues, including funding and cutting funding. I do believe that there are larger corporations that are very profitable that can contribute to some of the issues that we have surrounding our local communities. Mental health issues, I think, is one that's particularly, as well as substance abuse resources that are needed for our local folks and statewide.
Okay, thank you. Tara, same question.
Thank you, Catherine. Yes, I have been a longtime champion of progressive revenue in order to fund the things that all of us rely upon in order to, just meet our basic needs. So my funding priorities will be around affordable housing, behavioral health. That includes both mental health and substance use disorder treatment for adults and children. Also funding our public schools, our K through 12 and early learning. Those are some of my top priorities for funding. We've been making a lot of progress on the ferries, which is great. And now, as soon as we get one more boat, we should be restored in Bremerton. So that's been a priority of mine for the last couple of years. But I do think that funding some of the more legitimate basic needs of the people that are suffering most in our community around affordable housing and behavioral health is the top priority. And I absolutely do support cutting the corporate loopholes. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm trying to get in my mind that we don't have Kurt here. The second question, you kind of led into it a little bit. It said, the legislature has added funding over the last several years to address homelessness and affordable housing, but it doesn't seem to be getting better. What more can be done? And Tara, you get to go first with this one.
Thank you, Catherine. So the reason why we have such a problem with people not having housing is because we don't have enough houses. We are about 250,000 units short for our population, and we have not been keeping up with the growth. And so I have been very supportive of zoning ordinances that would allow for innovative types of housing, such as ADUs, mother-in-law units, and have been a strong supporter for multifamily homes and making sure that we can build in a way that helps everybody have a place to live. Now, when it comes to people in poverty and experiencing homelessness, we also need to expand our housing trust fund. We've been doing that over the last 4 sessions since I've been there, which is capital dollars for permanent supportive housing of different kinds in our community. We have Mills Crossing, which just opened, but it's not enough yet. We need to continue on this track and keep making affordable housing a priority.
Okay, thank you. Tiffany?
Yes, affordable housing. It's a very key issue. You know, when I moved to Seattle in 1995, I rented a one-bedroom apartment in Seattle in the Fremont area, which is fun and lively and exciting. And my rent for a one-bedroom was $425. And I can't even imagine what that rent goes for now. And so affordable housing is very important. And I think that I've had many conversations with the Kitsap Builders Association and just recently received their endorsement, which I was really excited about. In my past life, I was the co-owner. My husband and I at the time owned a local construction company. So knowing sort of the intricacies, basics of building and the challenges that they're facing, I'm looking forward to continued conversation in addressing some of these things. And I think, you know, multifamily residential living and ADUs can be a great answer for some of those short-term things.
Thank you. Okay. Third question. We have a medical crisis with our only hospital and most providers in Kitsap County. What, if anything, can the legislature do to address this and make sure all our medical groups follow state law regarding reproductive health and end-of-life care? And Tiffany, you get to go first.
Okay, that's kind of a multifaceted question. So I heard reproductive health, I heard local hospitals and healthcare for our folks. Yes, so St. Michael's Harrison is kind of our one place that we're able to access, and we absolutely need more options and choices than just one. I think that, you know, as we're still seeing the effects of COVID and the staffing shortages of staffing, and trying to make it sure that all of our folks all over the 23rd district have access to be able to get to medical appointments and get a medical appointment and be seen and cared for in the timely and significantly helpful ways that are available to them.
Okay, thank you. Tara?
Thank you so much, Catherine. I was really proud to work alongside Senator Randall to champion the Keep Our Care Act, which would prevent the hospital consolidations and mergers that we're seeing all across the state, and which people in Kitsap County have felt very personally. Because we have one religious hospital that has some restrictions on death with dignity, gender affirming care, reproductive health care, I have been trying my hardest to get the Keep Our Care Act through, and also supporting the local community effort around a public health district. We also need to make some changes to our Certificate of Need program, which allows the state to kind of dictate how many hospitals we need in our community, and has a lot of regulation around it. And so I was a co-sponsor of a bill that would reform that last session. Unfortunately, it didn't make it through, but we do have a task force going on that. And I'll keep trying with Keep Our Care.
Okay, thank you. Now, I keep you all straight. If I mess up on going back and forth, let me know. The next question is, what should the Washington Department of Transportation do in the near term, next 2 years, and in the longer term, next 10 years, to improve the availability of functional ferries to keep the system able to meet its schedule? What role will you play addressing these issues? And Tara, do you go first this time?
Yes, absolutely. So
Okay.
over the short term, what we have done is partner with the Kitsap Transit to increase their fast ferry service. So we invested $1 million in the fast ferry service of the passenger ferry with Kitsap Transit a couple of years ago. We increased that to $5 million this year. And the only thing we can do right now is to try to recruit and retain workforce, and to communicate reliable service and to make sure that the Washington State Department of Transportation is communicating through all of its channels when there's an interruption of some kind. The issue is that we don't have enough boats. And so we are right now building our first boat. We have fully funded that. And we have allowed outside of the state contractors to bid for that and that was a huge fight because, we all support union jobs and going out of state was a hard decision, but we know we need reliable ferry service. We're working really hard on it.
Okay, Tiffany?
If anyone has sat in the ferry line waiting for a ferry that was running late in the last couple of days when it was sweltering heat, I think you probably understand why we need to prioritize our ferry. It's frustrating. And I really like what Representative Simmons says about better communication. I think that, as we wait for the ferry and we check our app and we are trying to monitor and see when the next ferry is, and then it's late and then we get frustrated and we kind of, sometimes people take it out on the ferry workers, which makes it hard to retain ferry staff when they're trying to encounter all the frustrations of the people. And so I would agree with the, getting outside contractors to get another ferry in the loop and just communicate what's being done and have transparency in moving forward with what's happening to get a fix going.
Okay, thank you. And this is sort of a follow-on question. What solution do you see for the traffic problems in Kingston when high ferry ridership occurs? And Tiffany, you get to go first for this.
Yeah, well, I'll just share a little anecdotal story about being stuck in the Kingston 4th of July ferry traffic. I was in the parade in Kingston and got stuck behind, it was a never-ending ferry line, it felt like. And then I was late for the Bainbridge parade, and it was sort of one of those things where I had no idea kind of the problems and the frustrations that were felt with the Kingston ferry. So again, communication, transparency, talking about, what's being done, what the next steps are, listening to what ideas are from other folks. I know that I am not one who is all-knowing. I'm not the smartest person in the room all the time, although I'm the only person in the room right now in my house. But I think that just having multidisciplinary and different input from different folks about different solutions can be really helpful.
Okay, thank you. Tara?
Thank you, Catherine. My very first session, I didn't really know how to advocate in the transportation budget, and we were on Zoom. It was horrible, but I was able to successfully advocate for more funding for our Washington State Patrol to actually help with the ferry traffic at the Kingston terminal. So we do have that ongoing. Also, I was able to advocate to get the realignment of State Route 104 right there in Kingston up on the list of transportation projects. So we should be breaking ground on that soon and actually getting the result that we need to stop the gridlock there at the Kingston Ferry Terminal, which is going to be a complete redesign of State Route 104 and right there by the ferry. So that will be coming, and it's never soon enough. But we did get it moved up on the list, or else it wouldn't have happened for another 10 years.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, Tara, you get to go first on this. What is your view on ranked choice voting?
I am a supporter of ranked choice voting because I believe that a lot of times people, go with the safe vote and aren't necessarily thinking about supporting, the woman in the race or person of color or people from different marginalized identities because they don't necessarily see them as maybe being competitive enough in order to win. And so I really like the idea of being able to put number one next to your favorite candidate and then put number two towards your second candidate. I think in theory, it sounds really well. I a really good idea. I still want to do a little more research on places that have adopted it and how it's worked out, and has it brought in new voters into our democracy who feel like they can connect with a candidate and actually have a stake in elections. But so far, I'm pretty much sold on ranked choice voting.
Okay, thank you. Tiffany?
Yeah, thank you. I would agree with Representative Simmons somewhat. I think that it would be helpful to see how it is working in other places that have implemented it. As you probably know, I'm running as an independent, and part of the reason, there was a lot of thought that went into why I decided to run as an independent, and I felt like I wasn't in alignment with necessarily either Democrat or Republican Party, and I felt like I wanted to be true to myself, as opposed to a political party. I didn't want to be married to a political party as I decided to run for office. And so ranked choice, I actually, it wasn't till all that long ago that I learned about what it was and had to do a little bit of research too, because I think that it's kind of a new thing, or maybe it's just new to me and I don't really know about it, but I think learning from others that are implementing it would be helpful.
Okay. Just a quick follow-up, and you will have 1 minute on this too. I'm just throwing this in. Do either one of you know, would it cost a lot of money or very little money to change the counting machines in our county that count the votes as they come in to a ranked choice option from what it is right now? Tara?
You know, I do not know the answer to how much it would cost for the county auditors to change those machines. I know that with the different iterations that we have seen through the legislature for ranked choice voting, there's always been an on-ramp of when we would implement it, so we could give the counties time to adjust. But I am not sure about the technology. I think Paul Andrews would be a good person. He's actually now the president of the Washington State Auditors Association. So we're very lucky in Kitsap to have him. And I think we should ask him how much, if anything, it would cost for the technology piece.
Okay. Tiffany?
I would concur with what Representative Simmons says. I don't know what the cost of changing all of the machines and all of the things, the structure of what that would cost.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, the next question, Tiffany goes first. Should the legislature provide more funding to school districts when many are having financial problems? Or should the legislature concentrate on academic problems of our students? For instance, only 32% of Bremerton students met standards in English language arts, only 23.45% in math, and only 26.3% in science. And it's similar all over the state. Tiffany?
Yeah. Well, I was looking a little bit into what we spend per student in our district, and I think that it came to around $19,000 per year per student that the district spends. And I think that sometimes when we hear folks that need more funding and they need more time and they need more trust, and without knowing any measurable outcomes to assess and do an analysis of what the funds are being used, and if it's effective, and if it's working, and if it's not, and what things can be changed, pinpointing what some of the problem areas are, which sounds like math and English for the Bremerton folks.
Okay. You can probably find that information out from your district, the percentages of meeting standards. Tara?
Yeah, I fully support funding our public schools and giving them more money. And I think we should be focused on other needs outside of academic as well. So for example, we long ago got rid of like home ec and shop class. And, today we need so many people working in apprenticeship programs and into the trades. And those careers have kind of been not centered for a lot of kiddos in K through 12 education. They're taught that, math and English is the only way. And I really believe we need more counselors, nurses, and support staff for the challenges that our kiddos are facing today. I trust our local school boards and superintendents that they're not frivolously spending money. They are doing their very best, but I would go for a whole new model than what we have right now, which is the prototypical model of education and funding, because some jurisdictions need a lot more support than others.
Okay, thank you. Now this one's sort of a general one, but Tara, you get to go first. How will you stay connected with your constituents, not just the ones with the loudest voices?
Thank you so much. That is one thing I'm very proud of. I grew up in this community. I am very connected to our most marginalized communities. I live in Bremerton. I, very frequently go to a lot of different community organizations for their events and am always reaching out to the community. I also am very proud of our access in my office. My legislative assistant is amazing, Zach Ellis, and he definitely responds to all of constituent email unless they're offensive. And we are always accessible. People come down to Olympia and meet with me in my office. They come down for advocacy days, but during the interim, I spend a lot of time in the community, attending different events and interacting with constituents who don't necessarily always see themselves included in our political system. But that's because that's where I came from.
Okay. Tiffany?
I love this question. And part of the reason that I am running is because I have tried to reach out to our elected officials in the 23rd district, and Representative Simmons, I have reached out to your office countless times. I lost track of how many times I've reached out to your office in an attempt to have a conversation with you. And I never wrote anything offensive in an email, and I never heard back from anyone. So while I understand that you do community events, and that's fantastic, I don't know, maybe, I don't know what. I just have written to your office many times asking to meet for coffee. I know I attended your town hall where you said, call me, we'll go to coffee. And I've tried, and I haven't been successful. So sorry.
Okay. Hey. Okay. And Tiffany, you get to go with this one. Do you think extreme weather events are increasing? And if so, how are they affecting Washington people?
Well, considering that we're having an intense heat wave right now, and we have for the last couple of days, I think it's a question that I would say, yes, we're experiencing intense weather. I also have, grave concerns for the fires, the forest fires that we've had in the past, and what that is doing to our air quality. I know that when we have really hot, non-breezy days and there's smoke in the air, it can have some serious health effects for people who are struggling with that. So yes, I think that it is an important thing that we need to monitor and be aware of.
Okay. Tiffany, Tara?
Can you repeat the question, Catherine?
Yeah, it says, do you think extreme weather events are increasing? And if so, how are they affecting Washington people?
Absolutely, they are increasing, and we have seen over the last few years the record heat waves, which this is the catalyst for the charity care bill that I passed, was that my son, during a heat wave, was out in a lake swimming and got really, really sick, dehydrated, and he had rhabdomyolysis because of the extreme heat and ended up in the hospital. A very otherwise healthy young man was in ICU for several days because of our heat wave. And we don't necessarily all have air conditioning in our houses, so that's why he was at a lake. And he couldn't afford the medical bills. And that's what made me do the charity care bill. But I also want to take my last 16 seconds to address Tiffany and let you know that if you have contacted me and I don't know, I am extremely sorry for that. And please forward your emails that you have sent to me before to tara.simmons@ledge.wa.gov, and I will respond. I am very sorry, and that I will talk to my legislative assistant and get to the bottom of it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate your apology.
Okay, great. Okay, we got Tiffany and Tara. Okay. The next question goes to Tara first. Do you support the police reform legislation as passed, or do you think it should be changed some? That's a broad question.
It is a very broad question, so it depends upon which policy you're talking about. I voted no on the Republican hedgehog-funded initiative to completely undo our vehicular pursuit laws, because now it went back to where it was. We had vehicular pursuit and laws put in place because we know how unsafe they are. Over the since 2017, I think it's around 56,000 people have been injured in police pursuits across the country. In addition, about 3,000 people have died, and 500 of them are innocent bystanders. They're not even people who were being pursued. And when we got the data about, the 4 times more likely to die in a police pursuit if you are Black than if you are white, I knew that we needed to do something. And so I do not support the initiative that we just passed, but I do support most other police reforms.
Okay, Tiffany?
Catherine, can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
Sure. Do you support the police reform legislation as passed, or do you think it should be changed some?
Well, I think that there were some legislation that occurred as a result after 2020, 2021, 2022, and one of them was the police pursuits. And I think that what we saw is carjacking and stolen vehicles crimes increase. I think that we saw some, people who use that as an opportunity, knowing that there wouldn't be any consequences and knowing that they perhaps wouldn't be caught. I think that, being a victim advocate and having seen firsthand the experiences of what crime looks like for victims, I think there's a couple of things that were kind of an overcorrect that happened in 2020, 2021, 2022. And those are some things that I've addressed that I would want to work on. And they revolve around holding individuals accountable and being responsible for their behaviors and choices.
Okay, thank you. Next question. This may be the last, but we'll see. And Tiffany, you go first. Since there continues to be food insecurity for many Washington state children, would you support the state providing free breakfast and lunch programs for all children? Why or why not?
I would support that. I think that, we saw during COVID days, all of the school lunches were free, and having 2 teenagers, one being a teenage boy, man, it was very helpful that he had free lunch at school. I think that, sometimes there are families that can't afford lunches and meals for their kiddos, and there's some shame that goes along with that. And I think that having that as an option for all students, if they need it, is something that is a benefit. And I think taking care of our kiddos, basic needs is something that's worthwhile and investing in.
Okay, thank you. Tara?
I absolutely support free breakfast and lunch for all kids. I will say there has been some critique about that from Democrats who have wealth and saying, hey, my kids don't need free lunch. So why are we going to pay and spend state dollars on families who don't need it? But for me, it boils down to kind of like shame. And I know as a child who came from poverty that having my friends know that I was on free lunch and they weren't, also, hurt my self-esteem. And I would rather just have the school give everybody free breakfast and free lunch. There's not that many families that really have a lot of means these days to pay for that, or it is a stretch. And so we might as well just provide it. And then if you don't need it, you can bring your own.
Okay. All right. Okay, this one will be the last question. Washington ranks very low on the number of psychiatric beds per population out of all states. What can be done to ensure access to mental health care? Tara, you get to go first.
Oh gosh, that's a multifaceted question, and it is the root of our criminal legal system issues and why I'm such a champion for behavioral health. We need to do so many things. First, we need to increase Medicaid reimbursement rates for providers now. We need to increase our workforce and come up with creative solutions. I plan to probably prime sponsor a bill this session around psychologists being able to prescribe certain medications that are very safe, because we have a lack of psychiatrists that can prescribe medications. We also do need to increase our availability for inpatient stays for both behavioral health and mental health care. That's why I was happy to support the Suquamish tribe in obtaining $4.5 million this last session for their design work towards an actual detox center here in Kitsap County. And they will obviously serve all of our county. It is so multifaceted, I can't answer in 1 minute. I'm sorry.
Okay. Tiffany?
Okay, I'll just send a ditto what Representative Simmons said. And also, I've worked with a lot of victims and their families, and there have been countless times where an offender who caused harm, who assaulted someone, who robbed someone, their family had been trying for so long to get that individual help, and came across roadblock after roadblock, and there was nothing. They were so frustrated with their individual who was suffering being turned away, and the family had nowhere else to turn. And so I think that having bigger conversations with all the people, all the stakeholders that can contribute to getting some concrete answers for what families can do when they feel like they've tried everything and nothing has worked.
Okay. Yeah, I read about those people all the time in newspapers. Okay. I always have to say this. I've been moderating these 23rd legislative district forums for years. And at the end of one, I always feel very good about where I live and the people that surround me, because you all are nice, and I like that. And, in other areas, they have trouble, candidates yelling at each other and thumping the table and all. And that's just not the folks that run for office in the 23rd. And before the closing statements, I want all of you to know that the video of this forum will be available in a couple of days at our website, LWV-Kitsap.org. So let any family, friends, supporters that weren't able to Zoom in tonight to know about that so they can still watch. And we have many people that come in later and watch the videos of the forums. So people are interested. And now for the closing statement, we'll go in the opposite order as we did for the opening. So Tara, you get to go first with your closing statement, and then Tiffany, you'll have yours.
Thank you so much, Catherine. It has been the honor of my lifetime to serve my community, my neighbors, where I grew up and went to high school and went to Olympic College, and also overcome so many things that people shouldn't have to overcome. I was born in poverty and generational violence. I was trafficked as a young girl. I've been sexually assaulted. I have experienced gun violence and so many things. And then I developed a substance use disorder in order to care for the untreated trauma of my past. And that's why I was incarcerated. And so I understand the criminal legal system more than most people do. And I do believe that Tiffany is probably running against me because we haven't had a chance to connect yet to really talk about the needs of survivors of crime, and that the people in prison are survivors as well. So I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the people of the 23rd for supporting me and allowing me to work not just on criminal legal system reform, but all of the other things that I work on: voting access, housing affordability, environmental justice, reproductive healthcare, everything. But I do want Tiffany to know that I want you to connect with me, because I want to continue to reform our criminal legal system from both a survivor perspective and a formerly incarcerated person's perspective, because we are all in the same, really. So I appreciate her, and I'm grateful that she's running against me.
Okay. All right, Tiffany, your closing statement.
Oh, that was so sweet. Thank you for saying that. I wanted to meet you for a very long time, and I have known about your story. And I think that you are a remarkable, strong woman who has risen above through a lot of things. And I've seen resilient people, and you are for sure one of them. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And, I think that we have a lot of similarities, Representative Simmons. I think that we probably would agree on a lot of policy. I think we are equally passionate people about our populations that we care about. I think that you are a strong champion for folks who are incarcerated and folks who have offended and committed crimes. And I am just as passionate about the people that I have worked with, and victims and survivors and their families. And, I decided to run when I heard you in February in session testifying about your House Bill 2001, and you had described someone who had committed murder as unfortunately causing harm. And that was a tough one for me to swallow. So here I am. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right, this has been a great one. Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you. Stay cool.
Thank you. Bye-bye.